Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Zone. It appears that we are being provided with some information not before known to the public in the reply to state's objection to the defendant's motion to suppress, and this has to do with the Pennsylvania search warrant for Lambston Drive property in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, which is where Mr. Kohberger was at the time of his arrest, December 30th, 2022. It states here, if you go to page 2, that after saying that it appears that the parties are in agreement on much of what the law applies to regarding the search of a home, several topics that the defense addresses are now fully developed elsewhere. So what he is doing is he's referring the court to certain other replies that were filed on the same date as this one was, which was December 19th, 2024. He's referring the court to the Frank's motion, which is under seal. That date is November 26th, 2024. With the exception of that filing, the others regarding the replies, motions to suppress IGG, Apple, Amazon, AT&T, these are the subject of other motions to suppress evidence that the defense has filed. Then he goes into the next paragraph of introducing us to a name not known before relative to the Pennsylvania raid. He says here this leaves the issue of how federal and Pennsylvania law enforcement conducted their raid. This is the response that the state of Idaho filed objecting to the motion to suppress. Mr. Logsdon goes on to say it basically just boils down to, quote, we knew he was in there and owned a firearm. Then he goes into saying here, the state relies on a memorandum written by Police Sergeant Lang of the Pennsylvania State Police. Now, if you've seen the documents from Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Kohberger that was opened to effectuate the arrest and extradition of Mr. Kohberger back to Idaho, you know that the two names we are familiar with does not include this name of Police Sergeant Lang. The Pennsylvania state troopers whose names are on these documents, including the affidavit of probable cause in Pennsylvania, are Pennsylvania state troopers Justin Leary and Brian Knoll. So he's now telling us that there was a Police Sergeant Lang that wrote a memorandum to justify their actions of how the raid happened of this property. Number one, it was a nighttime raid. There were several law enforcement officials who went into the house at approximately 1:30 a.m. on the 30th of December 2022, and you have to obtain a special warrant for a nighttime raid like this, which they did. These two state troopers cited safety and other related matters to justify the nighttime warrant to the magistrate who signed the warrant and allowed this raid to occur at night. So he's calling this, and I'm referring to defense counsel, an odd document, never before disclosed. We do not have privy to this document because it's not on the public docket. It's not in the Pennsylvania documents that I've seen, and I've provided a link where you can go to take a look at those documents. One other point that bears mentioning here. In prior episodes of the Indie Zone podcast, we covered the fact that there was no body cam footage of this raid, that there were apparently several law enforcement officials that were involved in this raid, but no body cam footage. That's what the state has told Mr. Kohberger's team. Then says here, the police were concerned about making a hasty knock and announce, which apparently meant no knock and yelling from their Bearcat because Mr. Kohberger was wearing the same gloves millions of homeowners wear to do dishes. Then he goes in to say, two more things of note. According to the police, they had snipers. First time we're learning of this. watching Mr. Kohberger go from room to room. So apparently they were surveying him. Snipers were surveying him inside the house, walking from room to room in his parents' home, obviously greatly reducing his chances of posing much of a threat. And then he says, and although the state oddly claims this is not true, the FBI had been surveilling Mr. Kohberger since December 21st and had many occasions to take him into custody. The state had identified Mr. Kohberger on December 19th, 2022 through investigative genetic genealogy, IG. The state had obtained aerial photographs of the Kohberger residence on December 1st. The state had driven by the Kohberger residence on December 3rd and followed Mr. Kohberger on December 24th. Cameras were placed on his parents' property on December 25th, and trash was taken from the property on December 27th. Now, a key point here, we're given a date, finally, that the state, through the Moscow Police Department, was told to look at Mr. Kohberger per the FBI. This is information that we were provided by Judge John Judge way back in 2023, October of 2023, when he wrote the long order regarding the motion to compel that the defense had filed to obtain this IgG information. First paragraph, Judge John Judge stated that it was the feds who told Moscow Police Department, look at Mr. Kohberger. However, we didn't have a date, a timeline of when this occurs. It appears that we have one now. This document concludes, the state seems to accept that a failure to abide by law as to knocking and announcing leads to the exclusion of what was found in Mr. Kohberger's parents' home. This court must suppress this evidence. I have provided a link to this document from the Idaho cases of judicial interest, and you can read the entire filing for yourself. If there are any questions, if you have any comments, please do leave them here. A like, subscribe, all of your feedback is greatly appreciated. This is Kathy. Thank you as always for joining us here today.